The first 2 times I thought I had the right idea and the market said I was wrong. And the third time I thought it was a bad idea and the market said it was a good one. So at that point, I would say we were in a very humble kind of mode of just like, all right, we don't know anything. Let's just follow what the market wants. And so we, just did literally exactly what users were asking for.
Hello and welcome back to Innovation Insights. Today we are here with Peter Reinhardt. He's coming from San Francisco. He's the CEO and founder of Charm Industrial, a very cool startup that is dealing with carbon emission reductions and industrial decarbonization. So welcome here, Peter, and thank you for coming from San Francisco.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's start. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey? Because you have a very fascinating story for any entrepreneur. I mean, you started studying in MIT, then Y Combinator, then you founded a startup, become a unicorn, and now you are doing another one. So can you go through that journey?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I was a very naive aerospace student. And in my junior year, myself and my roommates kind of got the bug of maybe wanting to start something. We had read some of Paul Graham's essays on Y Combinator and sort of the startup ecosystem, and we got bit by the bug of like wanting to start something, and in particular really wanted to build something together.
Right.
So we dropped out with this idea to make a classroom lecture tool and got into Y Combinator with that idea in summer 2011.
All right. So, but you were in Boston, you are in MIT, and you are talking to your friends and say, hey, screw all of this. We're going to go to Y Combinator and we're going to follow our dream.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Well, that takes guts, huh?
Yeah. And I think MIT makes this easier, actually.
Okay.
When you drop out, they really say you're on leave and you can come back anytime in the next 10 years.
Well, that helps a lot.
It does help a lot, yeah, because you're not really losing anything.
Right. And you are there, you get accepted. So probably that's also like being accepted in college.
Totally. Huge, exciting. Yeah.
And then what happens?
Then it turns out we spend the whole summer building this classroom lecture tool. We have demo day. We raise about $600K, and actually one of our earliest and most helpful angel investors is here, Tom McInerney, and
who's a great angel investor, actually.
Yeah. And so we raised like $600K coming out of demo day, and we then started deploying it back in classrooms in the university setting, actually in Boston, and it was a total disaster. I mean, just like terrible. Like giving laptops to students in a classroom is a terrible idea. And
so it goes the same as with cell phones right now, right?
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, like we thought it was a good idea because we could help the students kind of get engaged with the professor, give feedback, ask questions. The reality is, and we stood in the back of classrooms and we're watching what was happening, and the students were playing solitaire and checking their email and looking at Flickr and shopping on Amazon and like everything except paying attention to class. And it wasn't like a small proportion. It was like at the beginning of class, it was 60% of students were doing, we were literally standing counting screens, 60% were doing something other than class. And by the end of each class, it was 80%. So we basically just went back to all the professors and we were like, I'm so sorry. You shouldn't use this, and you should ban laptops from your classroom.
Right.
So we pivoted.
So how is the journey to people? Because that's an interesting one, right? So you realize, hey, this thing is not working.
Yeah.
But somehow you keep the path of saying there is something else we can do. So how was that decision? Because you are with co-founders too, right?
That's right. Yeah, and I think it worked well for us to pivot, partly because we were quite committed to each other as friends. And so the founding principle was more that, hey, we kind of know how to build software and we want to do something together. And that mattered more than whatever the thing was. I think that was actually a pretty important principle for us as we were building. And so anyways, we had another idea that we were all reasonably excited about, which was to build an analytics tool. This turns out to be a bad idea too. You call it like a tar pit idea. It's like a thing that often technical teams kind of want to pivot towards, and it's actually a terrible market. And very hard to build a product that is 10x better there.
Right.
Anyways, that was a struggle for like a little over a year.
Okay, so you are struggling, you are trying to find your ways as friends, but you have this commitment. How many are you, by the way? In this?
4 co-founders.
4 co-founders, right? And you are like good entrepreneurs that are like a rock band. I mean, I always say that rock bands and startups are the same. Yeah. They really need to become very good friends because the journey is long and you want to be there for more than one hit.
Yeah.
But here you're having 2 downs right now. And I'm sensing there is something in Y Combinator in the way they chose you as a team, that they understood you guys were going to be resilient through this journey, right?
Or they hoped we would be.
Right, or maybe they were learning about it.
But we were best friends. I mean, we lived together. We had been living together for years. So yeah, there's a boundedness to that.
There's a bound on that. So what is next? You have the second pivoting right now.
I would say the first pivot was fairly easy. Like we stayed together very easily as a group. We had plenty of runway and so on because we had just raised money out of demo day. The second pivot was much more challenging. I had just gotten married. I came back from our honeymoon. It was very stressful. We only had a few months of runway left. We sort of realized we'd get one more shot at starting something. I was in and out of the hospital for panic attacks. I was losing weight really quickly. It was not a good time.
Very tough moment.
Very tough moment, yeah. And I'd say there was like a little bit of kind of like, this is our last shot. Not clear whether, all of us kind of starting to think, well, maybe this isn't going to work out.
Yeah.
Maybe we're going to have to do something different. So that was a very hard moment. And we actually had divergent ideas of what we wanted to do. But we wanted to stay together. And so the question was like, how did we just resolve that disagreement? And so my co-founder, Ian, had written a manifesto proposing an idea called Analytics.js, which was a little piece of open source software that we had built and used internally a year and a half before. And he thought it could be a really big product. I really strongly disagreed. And so in our argument of trying to figure out how to solve this, we said, let's just throw it to the market.
Right.
So let's go test it. Let's see what the world thinks of this. And I think some of that was born out of like a humility, which was like, we failed twice to predict what the world wanted. So maybe we should
listen.
Yeah, maybe we should listen. Maybe we should make it our priority to see what the world thinks of something sooner. And so that ultimately was the resolution. We built a landing page for this thing, Analytics.js. We put it up on Hacker News. And I thought for sure it would be dead. Turns out Hacker News loved it. So what do I know?
There you go. The market has a better reasoning and reacts to things, right? Yeah.
That's right.
All right. And then what happened? Then how do you go from there? So like finally something is working out there.
Yeah. And I would say that was the third time that I was wrong. The first two times I thought I had the right idea and the market said I was wrong. And the third time I thought it was a bad idea and the market said it was a good one. So at that point, I would say we were in a very humble kind of mode of just like, all right, we don't know anything. Let's just follow what the market wants. And so we, just did literally exactly what users were asking for. They wanted more integrations. They wanted a hosted version, whatever. We just built it. Right. We didn't ask questions.
So you learn in your process, hey, this is how it should be done. And that was your learning process. I mean, the pivoting actually was, how do you learn to become a real business person to react to the market? All right.
Which is the world does not care at all about what your vision is.
Much better than the education, business education, right?
Yeah, for sure. Which was one of my goals. And
there you go, the dropout.
Drop out and get a trial by fire MBA, which I got more than I bargained for, but yeah.
Right. And then you start testing, you start listening to the market, and this starts growing up, and then other challenges happen, right? Mm-hmm. And how are you guys addressing that? Because you become CEO at the end of this, and you were 4, right?
Yep.
So how does it go into the scale up, right? Because one thing is to have the startup, and then you need to scale up, and many companies fail there. But you guys survived. What was that journey? Yeah,
I would say the biggest area where we were weak as a founding team was sales and marketing, sort of the go-to-market motion, which is normal. We had no exposure or experience there. And so I think there were a series of people who were excellent at go-to-market in different ways that were actually the key people that were really sort of my partners and people that I learned from in terms of building that business. So the first was our first salesperson, Raphael Parker, who became our first sales leader as well. Yeah. He really showed us what sales could look like and, got us to like 10 million in revenue. Yeah. Actually, Mitch Mirando before that was a sales advisor. And, he's the one who taught me to do value-based selling instead of cost-based selling, which is very hard as an engineer to get around. I'm like, well, it costs us $20 a month to serve this. And he's like, yes, but the value to an enterprise is
it's very
$100,000
It's very different, right? They will pay for it.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember the first sales conversation that we went to, he was like, Peter, in this conversation, you have to ask for $120,000 a year.
Right.
And at the time we were charging $120 a year. And so the idea that I was going to ask for 1,000x increase in price was like melting my brain. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that. And he said, well, I quit as your sales advisor then. And I said, oh, hold on. Okay, fine, I'll ask. And so we went into this sales meeting and at the end they said, well, what's the price? And I said $120,000 a year. And my entire face turned red and I sat there sweating. And the counterparty CEO of Xamarin, Nat Friedman, was like, well, how about $12K a year? And I was like, well, how about 18? He's like, fine, 18. In his mind, he was getting an 85% off. In my mind, I was 150x.
There you
and
go.
I was just like, it took me like a week to process that. And I was starting to wrap my head around this idea that like it was going to generate massive ROI for him.
Right.
And it didn't really matter what it cost me to produce it. The
Right.
customer doesn't care.
Trial by fire.
Yeah.
And then you learn. Okay, and the company then grow up. After that, you have this moment, then you start setting the teams, you go up. What happens there with Segment?
I would say like we knew how to do engineering and we could recruit great engineers. And so like, in some sense, like the product and engineering largely, and like every 2 years I had to learn some really hard new go-to-market lesson. How to ask for value with Mitch, with Raphael, how do you do enterprise sales at all in terms of relationship building and navigating an org?
Right, because this is a B2B business, right? It's different than consumers.
How do you do qualification and discovery?
Yeah.
Was like another brutal lesson. And then actually scaling a go-to-market organization with first Zhenya and later Joe Morrissey, who's now a partner at Andreessen Horowitz. How do you have a consistent message across a large sales force? There's so many problems in go-to-market and making it scale. And as a first-time founder, I think you never really appreciate how much goes into that. So anyway, that was the journey. And eventually we grew to 600 people, 250 million in revenue, and the company was acquired in 2020 for a little over $3 billion.
And you're exiting through an acquisition, which is also a negotiation that goes there, right? And how is that process? Because you're kind of letting it go from your baby. Was it easy? Was it difficult? What was the process there?
I think it's probably one of the most like painful and like emotionally stressful things I've ever been involved in, because you're taking a decade of work and you're basically summing it up in one or two numbers, right? And a very small number of terms, and it's all comes to a head in one negotiation.
And no emotions there for the other party, where you have a lot of them, right?
Yeah, very asymmetric. It's a really big deal for you, and it's like a big deal, but not that big a deal for the other party. And really, really stressful. Really stressful. Yeah.
That's how you got through it. You solved it.
A lot of great advice from a lot of great mentors. Yeah.
That helps a lot. That's very important for entrepreneurs. Okay, and now you are doing a second one, right? And you decided, okay, I'm gonna do something else. How did that happen? You just finished the negotiations, and then you're saying, okay, what is next? I'm not ready to retire, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, not ready to retire. I could, but that would be boring.
Exactly.
I'm a glutton for punishment. Yeah. The idea for Charm Industrial came actually from an experience as CEO of Segment. We wanted to be a clean company. We wanted to have a good impact on the environment and the world around us. And we were buying clean power, and we traded beef for chicken on the menu and did all these things. But there was like this set of emissions associated with our activities that we couldn't get rid of. The concrete in the buildings, the steel in the data centers, the flying salespeople around, all those kinds of things. And so starting in 2016, I started with Segment purchasing carbon removal. And I started getting very interested in industrial decarbonization. And over the course of 2017, I had my day job running Segment. And then on every Saturday, I would sit down and grind on like, what is the solution to this problem? And for me, actually, go-to-market, as I talked about before, was like the thing that was important for me to get right.
Right.
But I'm an engineer. I don't like... I really wanted to solve the go-to-market for Segment, and also I didn't get energy from it.
Right.
And so I needed some kind of engineering outlet to get energy to sustain me through. And so in many ways, it was the hobby that sustained me.
Okay.
Sort of engineering product creation hobby. So anyways, in 2017, we kind of settled on like an interesting pathway.
Yeah.
And I started Charm in February 2018. So it overlapped for about 4 years with Segment. And the idea was to take waste biomass and convert it into bio oil or char and use that to decarbonize industrial processes and remove carbon in the process.
All right. So tell me more about how that works, because CO2 reduction and decarbonization is a very challenging kind of area. So let's get a little bit more technical. This is how you started. What is what you are doing right now? And what is the technologies that you are using?
So the process that we run today, what we deliver to customers today, is carbon removal.
Yeah.
So we're taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and storing it permanently underground. Right. And then the product that we sell today is a carbon removal credit to technology companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, banks, JP Morgan, consulting companies like Capgemini and Deloitte, and so on, and advanced manufacturing and so forth. So we help them get to net zero by delivering carbon removal. The actual process at a technical level that we drive is we actually take waste biomass, which is things like wildfire fuel load material that would otherwise pile burn or burn in the forest. We take that and we cook it at 500 degrees Celsius.
All right.
And we get out a liquid called bio-oil and a solid called biochar. The bio-oil is actually the flavor in barbecue sauce.
Okay.
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
Literally.
Okay.
So, people make it and put it in barbecue sauce. We make industrial quantities of it. And then it's very rich in carbon, very poor in energy.
I see.
Our whole site smells like barbecue sauce. We take that and we then inject it into old oil wells. So the carbon is coming into the plants, getting converted into a liquid and ending up
and then you
underground.
put it in the oil wells. And then somehow you will seal them eventually.
That's right, yeah. And these are very deep, right?
Yeah.
So
How do you find the oil wells? How do you get the deals into finding them? What's the process of doing that?
Yeah, in the United States, there are 2 million end-of-life oil and gas wells that are orphaned. It's a really big problem. They may be drilled by major oil companies, but then they get sold down the chain to mom and pop shops or kind of fly-by-night operations that don't go out of business or don't have the capital to plug them properly. And so then they become wards of the state, right? They become liabilities that the state has to deal with. And so the states actually have thousands of these wells that they don't have the money to plug.
Right.
And so we show up, say in Louisiana or Kansas, and we say, hey, we'll take one of these liabilities, we'll inject it, we'll turn it back into an asset, we'll generate revenue for the landowner, and then we'll plug it at the end.
Okay, so you're solving two problems at the same time. It's a twofold problem market. And
Four problems.
Four problems. Okay, let's enumerate the four ones.
First, we solve wildfire, fuel load reduction.
There you go.
Wildfires in the West United States, massive problem.
Yeah,
so we're taking stuff that will be pile burned or would burn in a wildfire.
Right.
So that's a huge human health improvement, huge ecosystem benefit, and huge watershed benefit.
Yeah.
So that's 3 in 1.
And prevention of fires. Okay, we go there.
The next one is the carbon dioxide removal itself.
Right.
We have a co-product. The next one is that we have a co-product, which is char. Char is it's a very porous, carbon-rich solid, and it's a great soil amendment.
Oh yeah, that was the other byproduct that
That's
you had.
right.
Okay.
It's a great soil amendment, and it can either go into the soil and improve the water retention,
Oh, okay.
which in the Great Plains is very important because they're depleting aquifers there.
Right.
When water falls, it runs off.
Yeah.
And so if you can increase the carbon content with char, you improve the water retention. Alternatively, you can take the char and use it in industrial processes as a coal replacement. And then the last one is plugging these orphaned wells.
Right. What happens when the wells are full? Then you seal them. Does it turn into carbon later? And you can just leave it there and it will convert into minerals? What was the process?
So just to be clear, when we inject into these wells, there's a metal casing that goes down about 3/4 of a mile, maybe more. At the bottom of that, it's open to the rock.
Right.
And so when we inject, what's actually happening is the rock acts like a sponge.
Yeah.
And it flows into the sponge of rock. And we think that a single well can, in the geology that we're working with today, can hold maybe 500,000 tons.
Yeah.
So huge volume.
Huge.
But at any rate, eventually we'll kind of saturate that. The bio-oil, it's warm down there. And in warm conditions, the bio-oil actually solidifies. And so eventually it will kind of fill out, it'll solidify, and lock itself into place. Then we'll fill the wellbore itself with concrete, trim the wellbore, a few feet below the surface, cap it, and then, leave the surface as if nothing had ever been there.
And in 1,000 years from now?
A few million years from now, it'll actually probably turn into a very strange kind of coal.
Well, this is super cool, and it's 4 problems into one, so you are multitasking quite a bit here. That's fantastic. And right now you are operating in the US. Are you operating somewhere else? Are you extending this? Because, I imagine there is a lot of industrial processes that go all around the world. I'm thinking here in Japan, in Asia, but also in Europe. Decarbonization is a big topic, and all those 4 problems are all around. So what else are you looking for? How do you see the market reacting?
Yeah, our plan today is to just continue operating in North America in terms of our physical operations. There's an enormous amount of biomass in the United States and Canada. There are many companies that have supply chains and physical operations, Japanese companies that have operations there. And so, we're excited to partner in that capacity. If you look at the sort of potential of North America, there's about 1 billion tons a year of biomass available, which can drive about 1 billion tons a year of decarbonization in steel and concrete and carbon removal and so on. So we can get to pretty material scale just in North America. But when we look beyond North America, I think the places that are most interesting are places that have biomass.
Right.
and that have oil and gas infrastructure or steel making. And there's a lot of places around the world like that, but I think India, Brazil are particularly interesting.
No, super cool. I mean, I think you have a big geography there to address. So this is CO2, you have a cool technology addressing these 4 problems. You figure out engineering, which is the part that you are more excited about personally in the past. What is next? What other technologies are you guys thinking on, you are seeing in this market of CO2 carbon reduction?
The span for us in terms of what we want to go impact is the carbon removal side, green iron, making emissions-free iron, and actually we can capture the CO2 off the back and sequester it. So you deliver both green steel and carbon removal at the same time.
Right.
From one piece of biomass, so it's extremely efficient use of the biomass. Green cement is similar, basically the same process.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because cement is a very big problem, right? Especially with construction. I mean, it's almost very difficult to recycle and know what to do with it.
That's right.
Yeah,
and I think for both steel and concrete, if you're using the char or the oil and bio-oil in those processes, you can double dip and decarbonize it as well as remove carbon in the same process. And so that I'm particularly excited about that. These are very big industries.
Huge,
Steel is 8% of global emissions, concrete is similar, and carbon removal needs to get to a similar scale. So if we could go knock out 25% of emissions, I'm a happy man.
Just the construction of buildings all around the world. If you can reduce that, I mean, that and transportation, I think, are the big ones. Yeah.
There are many other things that you can sort of make strategically, but in terms of climate impact, are quite small, like graphite and asphalt and so on. I mean, there's a lot of materials that you can make out of the sort of refined biomass supply chain, which may be sort of like geopolitically valuable or economically compelling, but in terms of total scale that they need to get to, it's really the big 3: carbon removal, concrete, and steel.
All right. And you are in San Francisco based, and there's a lot of technology going on there. We are seeing all this AI fast and everything, but I'm sure that also in your field, there's other technologies or other ideas, and maybe connected to AI, that are starting to happen. And you may be thinking, okay, it can be the next game changer here. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, there's kind of 2 interesting connections to AI for Charm specifically. One is, well, maybe 3. One is our customers largely are the AI hyperscalers.
Yeah, right.
Think like who is building lots of concrete and steel and has a lot of natural gas that they're burning to power the data centers that they're building.
Centers, right? Yeah.
It's a lot of hyperscalers. So oftentimes the AI boom is our customer to some extent. The second interesting connection is what I've seen in both my leading Charm and also as chairman of a company called Revoy, where we're doing electric long-haul freight. Site selection is a very challenging process.
Right.
And extremely important for getting the economics of hardware deployment right. It's actually a process that really can benefit from the research that AI agents can do. So we're spinning something out of Charm called GeoForge, which is basically designed to help hardware companies use AI to drive faster and better site selection and deployment. And I think if we want to be in sort of an abundant future, we're going to have to get way faster and way better at building things in the real world. And I think a big part of that actually is site selection. So we get to use that internally at Charm and Revoy right now, and it's something that we're going to turn around and offer into the broader world. So that's maybe the second thing about AI that I'm excited about. Yeah. And the third one is actually around self-driving and autonomy.
Right.
If you look at the biggest part of our cost structure at Charm, or Revoy for that matter, on long-haul trucking, but even within Charm, if you look at sort of what is Charm, it's moving tons of carbon from biomass source to injection well. And so the opportunity for autonomy to help streamline this fundamental massive mass movement problem could go quite far. And so I'm optimistic that Charm will be able to also consumer of AI there in terms of driving the cost of carbon removal very, very low. Yeah,
I was going to ask you about industrial robotics and how do you automatize all the thing of the collection, because
it's a ways out. It's a ways out on our roadmap, but it's something that I'm eyeing as.
But it's going fast now. I mean, you are getting a lot of advancements now with the robotics fundamental model. So maybe we go into that faster than we think. And let's see. It's a challenging part, the physical part. So now I want to ask you a little bit about the future, because you are seeing these technologies evolving. You are driving this very cool project and thinking all the time, what is next? How can I apply? How can I be more efficient? How do you see the world 5 years from now in this part of carbon reduction? How, if everything goes well, what are the things that will happen to us that, hey, we achieve all of this? This is how it's working.
Maybe I can speak most specifically to kind of what charm looks like in 5 years. I think we should be starting to get to the systems that do the conversion from biomass to bio-oil, called pyrolyzers. Those pieces of equipment today are sort of at a single site, they're prototype scale, et cetera. I mean, they're delivering carbon removal, but they're small and early. I think 5 years from now, we should be looking at machines that may even be autonomous, that are sort of roving bands, right? Of 10 or 15 of these machines that go from farm to farm or forest to forest, picking up waste biomass, doing the conversion, potentially autonomous trucks that are taking that bio-oil to injection wells. Maybe an analogy is sort of like cows graze autonomously. It's like these are robotic cows.
Well, it's happening already, like in mining, right? If you go to a Rio Tinto kind of site, you see all these automatized. They are all these vehicles that are doing it like a robotic way, and then the mining also goes into that. So I kind of see the same in the forest.
Yep.
For you. No, that could be a fantastic process. So it would be more automatized. You will have more scale and more impact in going into that, and you will achieve your mission better. I think that's the exciting part, and that we all hope that it happens.
And I think it's both obviously delivering carbon removal by pushing this stuff underground, but also if we can get the cost of the bio-oil and the biochar down low enough, it becomes, which we can, it will become just a better way of making steel and a better way of making concrete in terms of cost structure. And that's something that I'm excited about, both to make the clean thing the cheaper thing, but also geopolitically, right? To just have it be a lower cost structure way of making some of these key strategic materials, I think is really
but I think that's the key, right? When you get that scaling up and you make it the cost low, then there is not a reason why not to adopt it. It's the contrary, right? The market will go directly. So for me, that's the exciting part. I mean, I think that's the market-driven approach to these kind of global challenges. And decarbonization is one of them. So we are rooting for you. It's very exciting. Thank you so much for that. Let's continue. So we are getting at the end of the interview, and I wanted to ask you for a question that we ask all the speakers, which is a word of wisdom in your journey. Let's go back to the Peter that was studying the first year before dropping, and you just got into MIT, very excited, and then you start getting the bug of being an entrepreneur. What would you like to have known at that time that you've learned in your process that you would tell to the younger Peter and say, like, hey, this is very important. 1 or 2 lessons that you think are important.
The most important lesson that I had to learn the hard way in that era was humility to the market, humility to the customer. And, you need, I guess, a vision to go pitch someone on something, but people want to be nice. People want to give you kind of fake positive feedback that like, oh, good job, you're nice. But I think it's actually very important to be incredibly humble to what does the customer actually want? What do they actually need? And are you actually really solving a problem that they're going to pay for? And a technique that I think came out of my later go-to-market experience was when someone says, oh yeah, that's a cool idea, you should follow it up with like, great, here is a contract for
here's a proposal,
$100,000 a year. Would you pay for it? And it's in that moment where you put a value on it that the person will say, oh, well, that's a little expensive. Like, oh, well, what number would you put on it?
Right.
And so the act of putting a price on something and monetizing something, I think is very clarifying as to what a customer actually wants. And it's actually a humble action. You're trying to, you're not asking it from a place of ego. You're asking it from a place of humility of wanting to solve their problem.
Yeah. Exactly, and it's a real test of what does it mean. Well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for all this wisdom in the interview, not just our latest one. For those of our audience that wants to follow you, what is the best way of doing that?
Sure. Yeah, I'm on Twitter as REINPK.
Okay, fantastic. So, guys, if you want to follow Peter, now you know where to do it. Well, thank you so much, Peter. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.